Welcome to the Dark Mind Podcast. Friends and familiars, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dark Mind Podcast, where we explore the boundless realm of dark literature and film. On today's show, I have an author and physician that has taken her medical knowledge and translated it into a dark medical thriller. She's joining me today to discuss her latest novel entitled The Fatal Mind. So without further ado, join me as we delve into the dark insight of N.J. Gallegos. All right, friends and familiars, we are live on YouTube, Twitch, and X with NJ Gallegos here to discuss her recent novel, The Fatal Mind. NJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Vince.
Absolutely. Thank you for making time in your busy schedule. I know you have to get to work after this, so I'm going to try and keep you right on schedule. Thank you for joining me on this 26th day of October 2024. After reading The Broken Heart, I was eager to see what dark concept you'd explore next. And when you reached out about The Fatal Mind, I knew it would be medically based, but I wasn't sure if it would focus on a neurological condition, a new medical procedure with unforeseen consequences, or maybe the actions of a psychopath. And as it turns out, it was all three. The book's morally gray medical premise was filled with intrigue, violence, and introspection, and the slow burn progression left you anxious and attached, like you and the story were in a toxic relationship, so to speak. So congratulations on a fantastic new release, and thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, and thank you for the kind words.
Absolutely. Well, so launching right into it, the story centers around a former NBA player by the name of Sean Gilbert, who had to end his career early due to a head injury that left him with relentless, crippling migraines. Now, were they specifically migraines or
Yes.
just kind of a generalized headache? Okay. All right. So after exhausting every mainstream and alternative treatment, a friend suggests he visits a neurologist named Dr. Absinthe, who successfully treated his wife's severe migraines with an experimental chip implant. So Sean decides to make an appointment with Dr. Absinthe, and that's where the story begins. So I was curious to know if the storyline involving a chip was inspired in any way by the Neuralink chip and the corresponding possibility of unforeseen, horrific side effects that no one considers, much like an episode of Black Mirror, which, if I remember, one of the blurbs for your book mentions or makes a comparison to Black Mirror.
Yeah, I absolutely love Black Mirror, so I will admit that it was inspired by this. But not so much the Neuralink. I was inspired by reading a story of people that were hacking into medical devices, which is something to think about, to be terrified about. But yeah, people were like hacking into like pacemakers, defibrillators, pain pumps. So that was more what got me thinking about it.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, in the past, obviously not, but I'm on a CPAP machine, for example, and that's got the ability to connect to Wi-Fi to send reports to my pulmonologist and stuff like that. So that's the deal with pacemakers and any other thing, or they've got like Wi-Fi connectivity capability, or wow.
Mm-hmm. When somebody comes in for like a cardiac thing and they have a pacemaker or defibrillator, we can interrogate them like remotely. Yeah.
Interrogate the patient, or like a or you're talking about like generating a report or diagnostic on the.
I mean, technically I could interrogate a patient. I just don't know how cool that would be.
Well, I've heard interrogation used as a term for like gathering a differential diagnosis. I know the term interrogate has like a bad stigma attached to it, but I think it doesn't necessarily mean aggressively question somebody, does it?
I just always think of waterboarding for whatever reason.
Well, that's a little bit more than interrogation.
Yeah.
Well, so let's see, pacemakers, pain pumps, I can totally get that because there's like a restriction on how much you can get. Is it people trying to, I guess, maybe get high?
I guess that would be the thought, right? Otherwise, you would just be emptying the entire reservoir and OD in them.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry to belabor this point, but I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about the Wi-Fi connectivity of medical devices. Has there ever been any hacking for nefarious reasons? Like, could somebody potentially stop somebody's pacemaker?
They could, yeah, if they wanted to.
Jesus.
I haven't heard of any, like, personally, but I've read about it.
Yeah, I think if I get anything like that, I'm just going to stay offline. You can call me on the phone. Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, circling back to the book, naming the doctor Dr. Absinthe was a very interesting touch. Absinthe, a green spirit distilled from botanicals, most notably wormwood, which contains, I think it's pronounced thujone, which is a compound with hallucinogenic properties. Known as the Green Fairy, absinthe is associated with creativity and mystique, often used by artists and writers for inspiration. So what inspired you to name your character Dr. Absinthe?
I actually came up with her first name initially. So Aldea, I just really liked it. And it honestly kind of just fell into my lap as far as absinthe. And then I was like, oh, that does have extra meaning. Wow.
Meaning, like, how do you tie the effects or whatever to, I guess, her role in the story?
Yeah, because like you said, absinthe, like hallucinogenic, maybe potentially it could impact memory. Obviously, the chips do that occasionally, so it does work.
Okay. Maybe a little nod to her creativity in creating the chip.
I like it.
Perhaps. Yeah. Okay. Well, for some reason, I was expecting Dr. Absinthe to be an imposing, nefarious antagonist, but she turned out to be a competent doctor with a really good bedside manner. So, was it your goal to subvert that expectation? And if so, why? And I guess I should qualify that with maybe that's not the expectation. Maybe that's just me.
In the first draft, she was more nefarious and mustache twisting and cackling. But I didn't find it as interesting because she was just like bad to be bad. I found her to be more interesting doing like what she thought was the right thing, but maybe not for the greatest reasons. And I did get some feedback from my editor that she was a little too much. She was a little too evil.
The picture of Dr. Evil just shot into my head. Not evil enough.
I didn't go to 6 years of evil medical school.
Yeah. So she went from full-on nefarious, having a little mini-me next to her, to more of a, not like a shining white-washed example of a character, but more in the morally gray area?
Yeah.
Okay. So just out of curiosity, like you talk about, mustache twisting, like, did she initially have a really dark reason for creating the chip? Or what was it that made your editor like, oh no, you need to tone it down a little bit?
Yeah, so I had actually written her that she could like influence what people did via the chip. So, if they worked at a bank or whatever, she could have them withdraw a bunch of money and give it to her or whatever. So this was more like she just had untoward consequences to her chip.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Dr. Absinthe is described as extremely attractive. So I'm curious, which celebrity does she resemble the most? And, well, yeah, we'll start with that.
In my head, I have her like Sophia Bush.
I am not
Chicago
familiar
Med.
with her. Sophia Bush. Let's see here. Oh, dear God in heaven. All right.
I know. And she has like this really raspy, sexy voice too.
Let's, for the sake of the viewers here. So, that's who we're talking about?
Oh, my God.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, look at her.
You all right there?
Getting hot now.
Take a drink, take a breath. It's all good.
And Vince, I want you to know, I used to watch her in One Tree Hill.
Uh-huh.
It was like this CW show. And in the last 2 years, she stated that she was dating a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And like my teenage self just like exploded.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this person well known? I'm so out of touch with pop culture. I didn't even know who Sophia Bush was.
She's a soccer player or former soccer player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see here. Another question about her. Could you describe, I mean, you do a good job of painting her character's personality in the book, but could you describe it, and is it driven by a particular neurosis?
So to be in medicine, you have to have some neuroses, to be honest. You have to be, kind of type A. Ideally, you would be a bit of a perfectionist. So, yeah, I mean, she's driven very much to achieve her goals at whatever cost is happening,
Uh-huh. So like maybe, I know what you're saying as far as like being in medical healthcare or whatever. A lot of times it's a thankless job. There's a lot of PTSD involved in it because you're seeing some of the worst aspects of the human condition. So would you say that maybe a lot of neurosis that medical workers suffer from is like maybe a sense of codependency, like that caretaker syndrome? They need somebody to need them. So what better way than to get into a career where people need them like quite badly?
That could be some of it. And oddly enough, so whenever I did do therapy, the therapist told me that like 90% of people that pick the ER have had some sort of like childhood trauma.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, however you define that, but maybe we just kind of are used to that like drama, that heightened adrenaline, and we just like seek it out and we function well in it. So it just works.
Yeah. Are you a bit of an adrenaline junkie otherwise?
I'm kind of a puss sometimes, to be honest.
You're not out skydiving or Tokyo drifting?
Yeah, and I just get really bad motion sickness.
Okay.
So I can't do roller coasters. I mean, I like trail running. That's pretty exciting, huh?
Yeah.
You could get eaten by a mountain lion.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when Sean goes to his appointment with Dr. Absinthe, he's told that the procedure isn't even technically surgery. It's a chip that's slipped directly under the skin by a small incision with a local anesthetic and some mild sedation. So why did you choose to make the implantation of the device simple and not more dangerous and dramatic?
A couple of reasons. If it was more invasive, it would probably have to be a neurosurgeon that did it. So I would either have to change her from a neurologist to a surgeon or, add additional physicians, which would kind of, tangle the web a little bit. And I feel like people would be more likely to go through with a procedure if it was less invasive, obviously.
Yeah, that's one of the things I thought about is I guess it's more believable that right off the bat he would make the decision because it wasn't so invasive. And also, what I did not think of, which you just told me, which is something I love, is technical accuracy. Like the fact that it would have to be a neurosurgeon as opposed to a neurologist. So kudos to you for staying technically accurate there. I don't
do what I can.
I know that's not everybody's thing, but I don't know if you'd call me a type A personality, but I'm obsessed with details. So,
Well, I appreciate that about you.
Well, let's see here. One of the things that Sean had to do in order to receive the experimental chip was to relocate from Austin to her location for 6 months, just so he'd be close by if there were any unforeseen issues. And I tried going back in the book. I cannot remember where was she located. They were in Austin. She was in
Denver.
Okay. I don't know why I couldn't locate that again, but how does being away from home impact Sean's mental and emotional state? Did you explore any themes of isolation or vulnerability due to his new unfamiliar surroundings?
I think that he already was in a bit of an isolation just because of what he was suffering from. Like, he didn't really go out. He didn't hang out with his friends just because he was suffering so much, even when he was in Austin. So I don't think that particularly affected him. But, I mean, any kind of new change and whatnot is going to be a little bit disorienting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like I should emphasize the reason, especially to people that haven't read the book, the reason I keep referring to it as an experimental chip is literally it is experimental, not approved by the FDA. So he's consenting to something that's hasn't been tested much. He's kind of the guinea pig himself. So I guess that's another added reason that the surgery not being invasive makes it more believable that he would be, easily convinced in giving it a shot. So, yes, indeed. Well, you have Sean under the care of a medical provider basically 24 hours a day. You have him under the close watch of Dr. Absinthe after his chip implant, but you also gave his wife, Rachel, the occupation of being an ER nurse. So Dr. Absinthe is highly invested in the success of the implant, while Rachel is naturally overprotective of her husband. How do these conflicting motivations drive the story's tension and impact Sean's experience?
So obviously, Dr. Absinthe wants everything to go just swimmingly, right? Whereas, Rachel, being medically trained, she obviously has an idea of how things should kind of shake out, even if it is like not an FDA approved chip. So the fact that she's kind of cluing in on these subtle changes in his personality and, dark impulses and whatnot, I do think that really helped drive the story, especially because she started getting a little bit nosy and kind of going through Dr. Absinthe's business.
Yeah, the character of Rachel, specifically as she acts as a nurse, you really kind of hold nurses up in a very positive light. I feel like I've asked you this before in our last interview, but are you like the cool doctor that all the nurses like?
I mean,
I know I'm asking you to engage in a little egotism, but I mean, if it's a fact, it's a fact.
I am liked, but so growing up, my aunt was an RN. So I think I already had a respect for nurses early on, but I think a lot of doctors coming out, they're like, I'm the doctor. I'm so smart. I'm in charge. Whereas we're a team. I can't do my job if I don't have the nurses. They can't do their job if they don't have us. Yeah, it's a team sport.
Very symbiotic relationship that has to be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how does Rachel's perspective as an ER nurse shape her view of Dr. Absinthe's experimental approach? Does her training lead her to push back more, or does it make her more empathetic to the risks involved?
I think both. She does realize that there are some things that Dr. Absinthe is doing that doctors typically wouldn't do, just because she does have that insight. But she also does realize it's medicine. Like, nothing's 100%. Sometimes bad shit happens.
Hence all the paperwork.
Yeah. A lot of signing on dotted lines.
Uh-huh. And also, I mean, there's a reason down the line, which we'll get to, but even in the beginning, before, the thing I'm alluding to, there's kind of a more personal relationship. I mean, I guess it would be that way if you were more than a patient. You were actually participating in a experimental run of a new chip. So that was kind of different to have such a close relationship with the doctor. Usually you're kind of gate-kept by a whole team of staff, but it seemed like they had a bit of a hotline directly to her. And rightfully so, I suppose. If she's trying to get this chip off the ground, she's going to want to keep her hands and eyes on every aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah. And it is kind of difficult, being a doctor. Like, you obviously work with all of these different specialties, like surgery, whatever. And at one point, it's like, okay, if my appendix goes bad, like, I'm going to have to be operated by somebody I'm friends with, probably. It's kind of weird. I don't want them to see me naked.
Has that ever happened for anything?
Not yet.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of him or not. I'm pretty sure he's who does surgery on eyes? Ophthalmologist? Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's an ophthalmologist. He's on TikTok, and he does those videos where you do a skit, but it's all you, just culled together in different clips. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Dr.
He's got
Glockum Flockin or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And he does, for some reason, he's got this aversion to neurology because he's always talking about, like, oh, you look like you had your soul just sucked out of you. You must have just got finished with your neurology rotation or something like that. And anytime that he plays the part of a neurologist, he's always got the percussion hammer in his hand.
He just looks really dour, too. He's just...
Yeah. Is that, maybe it's not the most political thing for me to ask you, so feel free to pass if you like, but is that a thing? Are neurologists just in general kind of disagreeable human beings?
I don't mind them. I actually thought about doing neurology when I was in medical school.
Okay. So it's just this guy.
I mean, they're kind of party killers sometimes because they just like to talk about weird shit sometimes.
Sounds like my kind of people. Well, all right. Circling back to the book. And everyone, can you hold up the mug? Last time that I had NJ on the show, she had this gigantic green mug, and I believe it's the cover photo of it. So I was like, you need the green mug this time, but she's got this, what I thought was a stormtrooper. What did you say it was?
It's a scout trooper.
Scout trooper. And what's the delineation? Do they have different tactical objectives?
Actually, yes. These ones ride speeder bikes, like in indoor, Ewoks and all that. Okay.
All right. There it is. I don't know how you drink out of that without it like pouring all down your...
I need copious amounts of caffeine.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's no lie. Well, so the backstory behind Dr. Absinthe's reason for the development of the chip was to reverse the effects of ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. I know that term. After watching her mother suffer severely from the disease before her death, more commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. So it doesn't work for ALS, but she finds it highly effective for treating uncontrollable migraines and other severe headaches. So at this point, is she still driven by a desire to help people, or has her focus shifted to profit? And can you expand on any changes in her moral compass at that point?
I don't think that she's as motivated by profit. I think it's more so like, if this fails, everything that she's done for her mother in her memory and everything, it's meaningless to her. So she has to make it work. Some of that's probably tied into her own identity as a doctor. Like, if she fails, she feels like she's pretty much failed her career, her mother, everything, and her reputation.
Mm-hmm. So this is in effect, a way to kind of salvage the situation. Like, even though it didn't work what it's supposed to, it seems to be great for this. And I mean, some people are debilitated by headaches. So if she can fix that, then,
Yeah, great.
even
Fine.
better. Cool. Well, Dr. Absinthe is surrounded by people implanted with her chip. Normally it's like you implant, the patients go home, and you only see them when they're coming in for appointments and things like that. But she's got from patients to employees around her, like her receptionist, Billy, and they're all at different stages, all received it at different times. So she's got a pretty broad perspective on both positive and negative effects. So as she starts noticing personality changes in them, was she in denial about the chip's potential role due to her desire for its success? And if so, at what point should she have taken more decisive action?
So I think she probably was a little bit in denial, because people did start having these untoward effects. But at the same time, this is the first time that she's doing this. And people can be rather finicky. Life stressors and whatnot can often cause a lot of stress and cause personality changes. So I probably wouldn't have caught on very quickly either if it were me. I think that with Aubrey, her patient that ended up being placed in the psych ward, I think that the alarm bells should have been ringing more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as you were saying, there's so many different reasons for things. Like when I go get a physical done, they give you that, if you're a man in your 40s, they give you that check sheet about your urinary habits, they're the prostate health thing. Thank God I didn't turn 40 when they were still doing the finger play. But
people pay good money for that,
I was not looking forward to it. Thank God they came out with the test before I turned 40. But like, it's got this check sheet, and if I answer it truthfully, it makes me look like I've got issues. But the reason I'm getting up multiple times in the night is because I drink caffeine like an insane person. And, just stuff like that. So I totally get what you're saying. And, some people, if they're having personality changes, they might be doing drugs. They might be going through a divorce, So I don't totally fault you, Dr. Absinthe. You were trying to consider all things. Well, Dr. Absinthe's motives become murkier when she asks Sean to be the official spokesperson for the chip, leveraging both his successful treatment and his celebrity status as a former NBA star who retired early due to crippling headaches from a head injury. So how does Sean's celebrity status influence Dr. Absinthe's perception of the chip's success? Do you think it blinds her even further to some of the risks involved?
I would say so, because now there's higher stakes. More people know about her. They know about the chip. She's getting more patients. And if she admits that there's something wrong, like, everything could literally crash down on her. It's not only, professionally in her little bubble that she could have issues. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, she could be literally made into a meme by all of America or Earth.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they could come up with one of those remix songs the DJs do.
I love those.
Yeah. Well, so it's more about reputation than the loss of money.
Yeah.
More than likely. Okay. Well, Sean takes a trip with Dr. Absinthe to appear on a famous talk show to promote the chip. The show goes well, but during the trip, she notices an intense personality change in Sean, which she attributes to drug use, which is reasonable assumption because I believe there was some ample evidence that him and one of his buddies had just taken a line of cocaine in the bathroom. So is Sean's apparent drug use a way to hint at unresolved issues in his life, or is it purely a tool to create ambiguity around the chip's effects?
The ambiguity, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, she could just be like, oh, he just railed a bunch of coke in the bathroom. Like, no wonder he's pissed off and raging.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Was there any other, I guess, is that like a primary goal in your mind? Because I can't remember from the last episode if you said you have like a loose outline, a meticulous outline, or you're a total pantser. But regardless of your method, is that something you're always keeping in mind, is like these subtle ways to throw people off the scent?
So to answer your question, I'm a massive pantser.
Okay.
Like I have a vague idea what's going to happen, but like planners, outlines, they give me hives.
Really?
Like I don't do that. Yeah, they make me sick.
Yeah.
I was the kid in school that would like take my loose leaf papers and just shove them in the backpack. Like no folder. Like that's my problem.
Well, so what did you do in medical school? I imagine you got to be a little bit more meticulous than that, or were you able to just stream of consciousness your way into, I don't know what kind of stuff you have to write in medical school?
You don't have to do a lot of writing in medical school, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a lot of it's just like memorizing.
Okay. Memorizing and then some long clinicals. Don't you guys do like 17-hour shifts or something when you're residents, or I can't remember.
So yeah, in residency, you have like certain months that are call months. So like ICU, cardiology, some other stuff. So every 4 days, you'll have like a 28-hour shift.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's rough. And they changed the hours too.
There used to be
like
more?
Back in the, oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
They didn't have like rules as far as how long you could be in the hospital and whatnot. And it ended up getting changed because, oh God, what was her name? Libby Zion. It was this woman who ended up dying, and they thought it was because a resident had been up way too long and missed something, like a medical interaction, like a medication interaction. And so they took it all the way to like, I think the Supreme Court, and they made like 80-hour work weeks for residents. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend that does props for the Houston Opera. And apparently they used to work, and not just people doing props, but like wardrobe, props, anything involved with the production. They, I think even the actors actually, they used to work them to the bone. And I think their union actually had something to do with getting a law passed because somebody that was physically exhausted fell asleep at the wheel and died on the way home. So, yeah.
Ish.
It seems like maybe the reason that, I mean, I'm sure there are other reasons, but I'm sure when these guidelines that allowed doctors, nurses, even paramedics and firefighters to work such crazy hours, I imagine back then it wasn't quite what it is today. I mean, the American healthcare system is slammed. It is non-stop, whether emergency or not. It's just, like an endless stream of people. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, and like you said, back in the day, like if you got admitted for a heart attack,
Mm-hmm.
you'd be there for 3 weeks. Now you get your stent, get your meds optimized, and you're probably out of there in 2 days. And people are living longer with worse things. We have more like gadgets,
Mm-hmm.
Everything's more complicated.
Yeah, and when it comes to the introduction of tech into healthcare, it's like you're not even off the clock when you're at home. Like you were saying with the pacemakers, you can interrogate, check all that stuff. You're at home on the computer treating a patient remotely.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
That's part of why I picked ER, honestly. Well, because I can wear scrubs like pajamas to work. One. And two, like, I'm on the clock at work. Once I clock out, I'm done. I don't have to worry about being on call or anything like that.
If the proverbial shit hits the fan, like there's a plane crash and they're like shuffling people out, like the fire department set up command and they're taking this amount of people, like they're evenly distributing them or either triaging them by like trauma centers and stuff like that. Can you get called into work? Like you
like
have
a mass
to come?
Casualty event kind of thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I bet I could. Now, the hospital I work at is not a trauma center.
Mm-hmm.
So if something big like that happened, I don't necessarily think we'd be mobilized for it.
Maybe just receive the walking wounded?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, probably won't be many walking wounded from a plane crash, but, I'm sure there's something that might result in a lot of ambulatory
rolling
people.
Wounded.
Yeah, rolling wounded. Well, let's see here. One of Dr. Absinthe's patients, a woman named Aubrey, went psychotic and was admitted to a mental hospital. Concerned that the chip might be the cause, Dr. Absinthe visits Aubrey to investigate. So when she offers to adjust the chip to possibly improve Aubrey's mental state, because I guess she thought maybe, I don't know, attenuating the strength of the signal would, might help. She warned her that, this might bring back her migraines to some extent. So Aubrey panics, screaming that she can't live with the pain again and demands that Dr. Absinthe get out. So this encounter makes Dr. Absinthe realize she's placed her patients in an impossible situation. How does this pivotal moment shape the direction of Dr. Absinthe's approach to the problem?
I think it kind of marks where she starts doing some shady shit. Because, Aubrey literally flat out told her, like, don't mess with it. I don't want to have to deal with migraines or anything. So essentially, Dr. Absinthe goes behind her back, does it anyway, and, attenuates the adjustments of the chip and whatnot. And, Aubrey still, it doesn't go so well for her.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it kind of marks the, she's not being completely forthcoming with her patients. And so she thinks she's acting in their best interest. So she's kind of rationalizing it. But is she really? Is she?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel for her, though, because, Aubrey explains kind of what's going on in her mind. And she's told that Dr. Absinthe can possibly do something to mitigate that. But if it means bringing back the migraines, she's like, I don't care. Just leave me the way I am. So it's like, she's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with her patients, even if she tries, they're like, no, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Back off, So,
yeah.
Well, at one point, riddled with fear and uncertainty about Sean's mental state, Rachel decides to sneak into Dr. Absinthe's office. There, she finds hidden documents revealing Dr. Absinthe's records of several patients experiencing severe personality changes, including her awareness of Sean's issues. Dr. Absinthe discovers that Rachel snuck into her office, but instead of taking legal action, she comes clean to Rachel about what's going on. So was her choice to reveal the truth a sign of guilt, desperation, or perhaps something more calculated?
I think maybe a little more calculating. Because, if she does take legal action, then that opens up Rachel to be able to tell her part of the story. And that would actually probably expose Dr. Absinthe's machinations. And she also realizes, Rachel being an ER nurse, she may be able to help her with certain things.
Yeah, so this is the part where the morally gray starts to seep in.
Yes.
It's like, I get it, but still, I don't know. Should you be doing that?
Right.
Well, when writing Dr. Absinthe's confession, did you intend for it to generate sympathy for her character, or did you want readers to remain suspicious of her true motives?
I wanted her to have a little bit more sympathy. And initially in my first drafts, she was more so, not to give spoilers away, but she was being more merciful rather than kind of trying to further her own ends. And again, my editor, now that was the part he was like, you need to be more brutal. I was like, okay.
Well, it was a great story. Listeners at home, buy it, read it, and review it. And for listeners who may not know, well, actually, they know now. We've been talking about the fact that you're an emergency room physician. So clearly you have the technical expertise to write a medical thriller. And is that how you would classify it, a thriller?
Yeah, I would say like a medical horror thriller.
Okay. Do you ever consult with medical professionals or colleagues while writing, or do you rely mostly on your own expertise?
I've definitely asked pals, and that's the best part about going to medical school, is you make friends with people that end up going into different specialties. And then I'll send them random text messages being like, hey, can you get worms in your gallbladder? And they're like, what the fuck? What are you doing? Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally good.
Yeah. You're trying to keep your Google search history clean.
There's no way I'm not on like 10 watch lists.
Aren't all writers?
If you're a good one, you're definitely on at least 10.
Yeah. I think there's been a woman or a man, I don't know. They used search history for how do you dispose of a dead body and stuff like that. And wouldn't that be just a perfect defense? You can just say, hey, I was writing. Well, where is it? I threw it away because I'm very self-critical.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
It just wasn't vibing.
Yeah.
The other day I Googled, what does the stuff in your eye taste like?
Oh, what is that called? The aqueous humor?
Vitreous humor, yeah.
Vitreous humor, yeah.
Apparently
what
it's a little
does it taste
salty.
like? A little salty?
A little salty.
Yeah, kind of like tears?
Yeah. I think the texture would be gross.
Yeah, it's probably a little slimy.
Like jelly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there is a lot of medical terminology used. Did your editor make you kill any darlings, so to speak, regarding specific medical terms? And if so, which ones and why?
No, he actually did not. And I don't think any of my beta readers mention that either. And I don't go with people that are just medical or anything.
Okay. Well, what's the most challenging part of writing a medical thriller for you? Is it the technical accuracy, building suspense, or something else entirely?
I definitely am a stickler for the technical accuracy. I'm like you. I want it to be as legit as it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's one of the things, if I'm reading something, I mean, it's nitpicky, but one time I was reading it was a Joe Hill book, and he put EKG instead of EEG. It's like an EEG is for seizures and whatnot, whereas an EKG shows the heart. And I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe this happened.
Tisk,
yeah.
tisk.
Yeah.
Oh, you poor lamb, you uncultured swine.
I even sent a email to their publisher they gave a shit. They did not.
Still incorrect. Damn it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what you need to do is go to Barnes & Noble and just cross through and correct every single copy on the shelf.
Ma'am, what are you doing?
Oh, no. What you could do is go to barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, and write a review. Give a page number, a reference.
And then people in black suits come to my house and they're like, how did you do this about Joe Hill?
Well, let's see here. Oh, kind of expanding on that, do you think it's possible to write a good horror or medical thriller without being in the occupation yourself? Is it possible to do enough research to make it authentic? And the reason I ask is because some of the best thrillers that I've read are by people that were in the actual field, like legal thrillers by John Grisham and some medical thrillers by Tess Gerritsen.
I think that you definitely have a big advantage if that's your profession. I mean, I would assume that you could do enough research, read, watch videos, pick people's brains that are in the profession to make it work. But I would agree with you. The medical thrillers and stuff that I've read that I thought were the best were all from people that were physicians.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even if you can get the research to, down to just a science, basically, I still feel like unless you're in the field, it would be hard to write an accurate representation of how they react or how they interact in the field. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess unless you're in the field yourself, you wouldn't know that it's not very authentic. And who knows, maybe the contrived way that somebody that's not in the profession would write scenes like that would be more compelling. I don't know. I just feel like the actual way that they interact with people would probably be so foreign to the dramatic way that it's portrayed that it would be compelling and interesting. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm trying to imagine if I wrote something like a legal thriller or whatnot. I have a little bit of basis, but since I'm not immersed in that daily, I just don't feel like it would be as strong as somebody that does that daily.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the way that they actually interact would be more compelling because I've seen House MD or Grey's Anatomy, stuff like that. They walk in, they throw a chest x-ray up and they're like, we got a collapsed lung, and then in the real world, I've seen somebody walk in and shove it up on the viewer and say, holy fuck, he's got a pneumo, So
that's more accurate.
Yeah. That's why I feel like that would be more compelling, but maybe not. Anyway.
Well, and we do a lot of joking around because, I mean, you have to. If you're not laughing, you're crying, right? And a lot of that I try to put in the book.
Yeah, that's probably the most contrived thing is the emotional reactions of, people getting, I mean, sometimes people freak out if it's like a child and they get real emotional and stuff like that. But for the most part, that melodramatic stuff, which I guess is what people eat up, there's a huge market for soap operas. But most of the time people are just, if the people working aren't just disagreeable human beings that are being dicks, as long as everybody gets along, the gallows humor that's being passed around is pretty entertaining.
Yeah, we're hilarious, man. I mean, it's a defense mechanism, but it's great.
Yeah, levity.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. How do you balance the need for medical accuracy with the creative liberties necessary for a gripping thriller?
I think that sometimes I have to pull back a little bit on the technical stuff because I tend to want to over-explain things because I want you to be like, look, this is right. I know what I'm talking about. So sometimes I do have to scale down. But as far as it goes, I think I manage it well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't find it a struggle necessarily.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. Like sometimes defibrillating somebody is really not that big of a deal. Their body flexes like that, but if you want it to be dramatic or, compelling and on screen or something like that, you have to make their whole body jump. You get the defibrillator has to make a loud, noise, just stuff that doesn't happen. So
I'm a little sad now that we don't have the paddles anymore.
Yeah, that used to be a cool
We
thing
just
to
have
do.
stickers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because how cool is that? Clear.
Yeah. Yeah, you felt like
Man.
who is that X-Man that shoots shit out of his hands?
Yeah. But now it's boring. We just push a button.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Can you share an example of where you had to choose between medical realism and narrative excitement?
Let me ponder that for a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Gallegos is pondering.
Let me take a massive drink out of my massive mug.
Enjoy a refreshing beverage while you mull that around in the old noggin.
Nothing's coming to mind on that one.
Okay. Let's see. Do you have any techniques or exercises you use to keep the creative juices flowing? Hallucinogenics, cocaine? No, I'm just playing.
Just a little bit of cocaine and some coffee and you're good.
Mm-hmm.
The way I usually get into the zone is I listen to a EDM.
Oh, nice.
Whenever I write. Yeah. I'm not one of those people that can write in silence. Like if I read, write, run, whatever, I have to have music or else I can't think.
Uh-huh.
So that's the biggest thing. And then I typically will work on a couple projects at a time. So if I'm not feeling one, I can procrastinate by writing on another one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's my biggest tip.
Okay. Let's see. Have there been topics or scenarios you've chosen not to explore due to ethical concerns? And if so, could you tell us about them?
I mean, I have an idea in my brain about a lesbian cannibal. So I'm trying to figure out how far to go with it.
Uh-huh.
Because, I feel like that might be a little bit ethically fucked up.
Lesbian cannibal, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Why would that be unethical?
It's intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, why would that be unethical?
It's a good question.
All right. Well, we'll ponder on that further. Well, has your writing process changed over time, especially with the experience you've gained in both medicine and storytelling? And if so, what have you learned about crafting a great thriller?
I've learned a lot. So on the first draft, I just get it down. Like I don't try to edit as I go along, which was something I would fall prey to early in the career, And then I think initially I had a lot of trouble with dialogue. I didn't use it a lot to move story along. And so that's something I had to learn and lean into.
Well, have you uncovered any personal revelations about yourself during the writing of this book?
Of The Fatal Mind? I think that some of it I explored, medical hubris. Sometimes medicine's kind of paternalistic. I know what's good for you. Just trust me. And I think I've had to maybe take a step back from that and loop patients in a little bit more, explain things a little bit more and collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's something that actually did get brought up with this. And I've stopped inserting those migraine chips too.
So personal revelations regarding your bedside manner, as well as the experimental implantation of chips into your patients.
Correct.
All right. Well, that's progress. I'm telling you. Well, despite writing dark subject matter, you are one of the funniest people that I've met, and people that have never met you before would probably come to the same conclusion if they scrolled through your Twitter feed. So, has there ever been a time when you wanted to add a bit of dark humor into one of your stories, or do you prefer to keep the two styles separate? And if so, why?
So, not to toot my own horn,
Do it.
but I was voted most witty in high school. Not most likely to succeed.
Ah,
Most witty.
little did they know.
Right. Suckers. I think that adding medicine and dark humor, I think that they're like two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to kind of play with both at the same time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I like to add up some messed up jokes and just... I like making the reader laugh and be like, what is wrong with this woman?
Let's see what we got here. First
My
of
prison
all,
mic epic.
yeah, the cover's fantastic. Just as you scroll through, fireplace babies, napping in the ice cream truck with all his toys. Let's see.
That's our new baby.
Me at work missing my cat. So full of memes. The entire feed. Let's see. The Fatal Mind. 2025 arriving in 2 months. Me not being able to process time normally after the pandemic.
I don't even know what month it is anymore.
And doing well. Let's see. What do you have here? You have 28,000. Is that right? Yeah. 28.2 thousand followers. Jesus. Kicking ass.
I do what I can.
I do what I can. No big deal. Well, let's see. Have you been promoting the book at any cons or other events? And if so, can you tell us about them?
So StokerCon this last summer, we did have some ARCs that we gave out. And then there's a local con in Champaign, Illinois called the Dark History and Horror Con. So I did promote it there. And then coming up, let me tell you the date. Okay, November 16th, we have a local bookstore called Tales of a Bookworm, where I will be having a signing. But even better, this bookstore, they have like a back room where you can adopt kittens.
Dope. Wait, and you say local. Where's local?
So I'm in central Illinois. So this bookstore is in Pekin, Illinois.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, you are actually this, as well as your first book, I believe, has been published with Winding Road Stories, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about any of their new and upcoming authors that you've been impressed with?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually started talking about her earlier, Caitlin Ladd.
Caitlin Ladd.
Yeah. Her vampire witch story was pretpretty great.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a big vampire gal.
Yeah, she did.
It just doesn't do it for me.
She did a pretty solid job. Maybe it's, let's see, by last name. There she is. Yeah, she did a pretty good job of kind of putting not only a modern day spin, but kind of creating this hybrid between witchcraft and vampirism in that book.
Yeah, it was very sexy too.
Yeah, yeah. As Those Above Fall. First novel. Yeah, solid. I'm jealous of her motivation in marketing. That's my problem. I do a lot of creation, but very little marketing.
You just got to make memes, man.
Memes.
It's all memes.
Yes, indeed. Well, tell me, speaking of podcasts, tell me about this podcast you started, the Screen Kings Horror Podcast.
So I actually joined the podcast. I went on to promote The Broken Heart, and I just really vibed with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Nathaniel J. Darkish, who's an author in his own right. He's also an English teacher. And then Max George, who's our resident demonologist.
Nice.
And also profoundly gay.
Profoundly, you say?
Profoundly.
I'm going to have to think about that.
Yeah, we just really got along. And they invited me on. And I really enjoy it. Like, it's a nice way to meet people, watch movies I otherwise wouldn't watch. And we just really like to talk shit with each other. It's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And do you guys publish regularly, or is it just kind of scattershot?
We try to go twice a month at least, but sometimes our schedules don't align since I work a lot of like second shifts, and then they have children. So that makes things a little more difficult.
Yeah. Well, all right. I know you got to get out of here, but I have one more question for you. When are you and Claire Castleberry going to collaborate? Whether that be on one book or do one of those dual novella releases, and you're dancing like something's in the works. What's happening?
Well, I want that very badly to happen.
Oh, okay.
We do have Winding Roads horror anthology that we're all working on.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all submitting a story. But yeah, no, I want to do something with Claire. Like, we have way too much fun when we hang out. And like, everybody's like, what is wrong with them? Like, why are they talking about this at dinner, for God's sakes?
What, like the gross factor, or what are you guys talking about?
Oh, well, yeah. She's the type of gal that'll be like, what have you pulled out of people's butts as we're eating? And then I will go into detail.
Uh-huh.
And then the people that write like romance or whatever, they're like, what the fuck?
Man, I wish I would have thought of that for the show. We're out of time now. I would totally ask you, what do you pull out of people's butts? But
I mean, there's a couple things I can tell you.
All right.
Golf ball.
Golf ball was a hole in one.
That's exactly what I said. They did not think it was funny.
Oh, damn it.
But that's show business.
Yeah.
I mean, your standard vibrator, which is boring.
Yeah. Who doesn't do that?
I mean, that's just normal.
Yeah.
Vitamin bottle.
Vitamin bottle. Healthy.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. Great for your gut health.
Mm-hmm.
And then this isn't a butt thing, but I have pulled out playing dice out of a vagina.
Playing dice out of a vagina.
Mm-hmm.
Was she attempting to push them out to roll them?
Playing Yahtzee.
Yahtzee. That's a hell of a way to throw a Yahtzee. Yeah. All right.
The way you win.
All right. Well, next time you guys have a conversation, record it and upload it on the podcast feed, and it will be the most listened to. That could be a podcast itself. You could call it Dinner with, let's see, NJ and Claire and NJ. I don't know which flows the best, but something like that.
We'll workshop it.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, NJ, it has been a pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you for having me back again.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming back on the show. Thank you for letting me in on this brand new work of yours. So as we bring the show to a close, is there anything you'd like to plug or let your readers/listeners know about or reiterate?
I mean, obviously, you guys should pick up The Fatal Mind so you can see all of our little inside jokes and whatnot. And then currently, I'm working on a story that is tentatively called Family Med. And it's about a family that owns a hospital who are harvesting organs for the black market.
Mm-hmm.
As you do.
As one is wont to do.
As you do. And I'm also working on a project with 5 other writers in which we each have a story, and the common thread is this revolver. And my story follows a woman suffering from a spinal cord injury, bent on revenge.
Dope.
Sick.
Sounds good. Well, all righty. We are all looking forward to that. So listeners at home, both live and on demand, all links will be and are in the description. And NJ, Thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can watch the episodes live. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode featuring the best and brightest writers and filmmakers of dark literature and film. So until then, stay healthy, stay sane, and as always, thank you for listening. See you next time.